Hi there, and welcome to another Mickey's Roundtable Adventures, where we explore everything Disney, one themed adventure at a time. For this episode, the theme is Steam. I headed over to Magic Kingdom here at Walt Disney World in Florida, where I rode the Walt Disney World Railroad and the Liberty Square Riverboat in Liberty Square and Frontierland. You're not going to want to miss this episode. It's going to be a hot one. From the time he was a young boy all the way into adulthood, Walt Disney was fascinated with trains. It's well known, well documented. But I think it was more than just trains. I think it was more specifically steam trains and steam power.
Hobbies are another fertile field for cartoon ideas. Millions of people enjoy various hobbies. And among the largest of these groups are the model railroad enthusiasts. In the United States alone, there are about 6 million people who build and operate these scale model railroads.
He famously built his own miniature railroad in the backyard of his home in Los Angeles. Friends, family, kids would ride the train. In addition to his backyard railroad, Walt Disney, along with his animators that also had the steam bug, would go to train shows and fairs. He also made several visits to the Greenfield Village at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan, just outside of Detroit, where they not only had a steam train, but they also had a steamboat as well. When Disneyland opened in 1955, it of course had a steam train heading around the perimeter of the park, and it had a riverboat, a steamboat, the Mark Twain. In his final years, Walt began planning the Florida project, also known as Epcot, the experimental prototype city of tomorrow, and part of Epcot, the city, was going to be a theme park.
Of course, there will be another amusement theme park in Florida, similar to the one in California.
He was mostly interested in Epcot, his city of the future, Progress City, but he was also involved with the early stages and planning of Magic Kingdom. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. It sounds really cool. I wish it was true. I hope it's true. I've been told that the very, very last thing that Walt Disney gave his signature and approval for was the design of the train station at Main Street USA at Magic Kingdom. Again, I have no idea if that's actually true or not. If anybody does know the answer to that, if you want to comment, let me know, message me something. I am curious. I think that would be fantastic if that actually was the case. That's exactly where I started off my Steam Day at Magic Kingdom, was at Main Street USA, which is where everybody begins their day, right out by the train station there as you go through the turnstiles, as you go under the railroad tracks. The train will begin operating right at park open, maybe a few minutes before. You'll hear it coming on into the station. You'll hear the whistles, and if you hear the bell, that means they're taking on guests. If you have time, if you get there early before the train starts operating, head down into the downstairs of the train depot. There's posters and plaques and informational signs about the history of the Walt Disney World Railroad. The Walt Disney World Railroad has 4 locomotives. All 4 locomotives were built at the Baldwin Locomotive Works between 1918 and 1928. They all ended up serving on a railroad in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. When they were no longer in use at the railroad down in Mexico, they all went to a steam locomotive graveyard, and in the mid-1960s, Roger Broggie and his team headed down to Mexico looking for old locomotives that they could refurbish for use on the Walt Disney World Railroad. They did initially purchase 5 locomotives. One of those was too rusted out, too worn out, too far gone to be of any real practical use. But the other 4 locomotives, they did bring those back to the United States and refurbish them. They switched them from being wood-fired to being fired by diesel, and then they added ornamentation and changed the smokestacks and did different things to make them look more like a locomotive that you would have seen in the late 1800s, mid to late 1800s, than the early 20th century like they actually were. In recent years, each locomotive has gone away for an additional, more recent refurbishment. And during that refurbishment, they added computers. Now, the computers don't control anything, but they monitor everything. They monitor all the systems. The computer will then initiate alarms that will signal the firemen of the condition of the boiler. Is the pressure getting too high? Is the water getting too low? They can make adjustments then as necessary. They can add water. They can increase or decrease the amount of fuel that is going into the firebox, making the fire hotter or not quite as hot. They can make adjustments to what's called the atomizer. The atomizer is essentially steam that breaks up the diesel fuel into smaller particles that makes it more efficient to burn. By making those different adjustments, they can keep their boiler pressure right within the optimum range for operating the locomotive. The last locomotive to be shipped off to undergo that extensive refurbishment and add the computer monitoring system is the Roy O. Disney, which is kind of weird to me since it was the oldest locomotive. It was built in 1916. 1928 is the newest locomotive, the Lily Bell, and then the Walter E. Disney and the Roger E. Brogy, the last one to come back from its refurbishment. Those were both built in 1925. The cool thing about the Roger Brogy and the Walter Disney locomotives is when you look at the boiler plates, there's a serial number on there. The serial numbers are one different from each other. They were built at the exact same time at that factory back in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, went and served down on the railroad in Mexico, and then now are currently serving with each other on the Walt Disney World Railroad. That's kind of neat. One of the very, very cool things about riding the Walt Disney World Railroad, for me anyway, after you leave Frontierland and you are heading back into the back stretch around the backside of Magic Kingdom, you will sometimes get to see the Liberty Bell Riverboat, and the steam train will play whistle tag. It's kind of fun if you ride on the steam train at Magic Kingdom, the Walt Disney World Railroad. There are 3 stops total. As I mentioned, Main Street, USA, where you come into the park. There is a stop in Frontierland, and then there is also one at Fantasyland as well. You can get on or off at any one of those. If you ride all the way around, it's about 20 minutes long. When you are at the Fantasyland station, you know it is a real steam locomotive. One, they do the blowdown, so you might get to see that. That's very cool because all kinds of steam comes out. That's the only place they are allowed to do that blowdown. And every other lap, they will add water. The water tower that's there at Fantasyland, that's not just a prop. It's not just a show building to look nice and look old-timey. They actually use that to put water into the tender of the locomotive, and then that's plumbed on over into the locomotive and into the boiler. Then from Fantasyland, the train will head through Tomorrowland and then back to Main Street, USA. Unlike the Walt Disney World Railroad, the Liberty Square Riverboat, it has just the one stop at Liberty Square. As you head into Liberty Square, you will see the riverboat landing. That is the one and only spot that you will get on or off the boat. And the riverboat, unlike the train or any other ride that you can ride on at Walt Disney World, it runs on a schedule.
Last call, secure all cargo. All passengers aboard? Cargo secured. All passengers boarded, sir. Captain, welcome aboard the Liberty Bell. I'm your captain, Horace Bixby, and my pilot with me here on the Texas deck is a young cub that goes by the name of Sam Clemens. He's marking his 100th voyage down the river today with nary a calamity on his watch so far. Sam knows this river like his own backyard. Sam, tell our guest everything you know about this river.
Well now, I always figure it is better to keep your mouth shut and appear stupid than to open it and remove all doubt. But I will tell you this, I love this river more than anything else. I've loved this river even from the time I was a toddler back in Missouri.
Every half hour, the top of the hour and at the half hour, they will depart. If you have an e-severe wheelchair, you can head down to the lower landing and you can drive right on. If you're not sure where that is, cast members will be more than happy to help you out and get you onto the riverboat. Like the train, it is also a 20-minute round trip. Goes around the rivers of America, through Frontierland, around Tom Sawyer Island, and then back to Liberty Square. And like the railroad, it runs on a track. It's not really a track as much as it's a guide rail. For steering the riverboat, you couldn't actually steer a boat that big around a river, a waterway that narrow, unless you had some kind of a track system. It's got two guides that go down inside the boat, and it fits into a rail, and then that guides the boat around. But it is actually being powered by steam. Also, like the railroad, I'm seeing a lot of similarities here. There is a computer that's monitoring the boiler. Just a few years ago, 2018, 2019, it underwent a refurbishment, and it used to have to be manually looked at and watched and adjusted for amount of water in the boiler pressure, all of that good stuff that makes a good steam engine work. When they did the refurbishment, they added the computer system, but unlike the train, it isn't just a monitoring system. It will actually adjust things. It will add water, it will turn down the fire, it will add more fuel, reduce the fuel, do all of the things that the cast member in the steam locomotive does, but the computer does it on the riverboat. A cast member will put it in gear as they head out, and it just goes around the river. They might need to stop for a Tom Sawyer Island raft, or maybe on an odd occasion a person swimming in the water that shouldn't be there. Maybe wildlife. I actually had to stop the riverboat once for a deer swimming across from Tom Sawyer Island. That was kind of neat. Steam and steam-powered vehicles are such an integral part of not just American history, but history around the world. Steam powered the Industrial Revolution and helped create the modern world that we live in today. The ability to harness steam and power giant machines revolutionized and really changed the world in tremendous ways. And it is very cool that at Walt Disney World, at Magic Kingdom, you can still find a piece of that history. These aren't pretend. They're not diesel locomotives that are made to look and sound like steam locomotives. It's not a diesel powered boat and the paddle wheel isn't just turning on the back for show. It's actually being powered by the paddle wheel, driving it through the water, actually being propelled by those giant steam pistons. It's just really fantastic that we still have these things at Walt Disney World, the steam trains, and for now, the steamboat, the Liberty Belle at the Rivers of America there in Liberty Square in Frontierland. That won't be for very long. They haven't announced any official closing date yet, but it's coming. If you get a chance, definitely ride that when you can, and if you want to, if you love the riverboat like I love the riverboat, let Disney know. Give them a call, write them a letter, send them an email, tweet off a tweet or an X or whatever they call it these days. So anyway, I'm planning on eventually doing in the next few months here at least one more video that's going to involve the riverboat and the rivers of America, and get more into the specifics of that history. This video I wanted to focus on just the cool nature of it's actually steam powered. Other videos I will go into the history of the rivers of America, riverboats, Tom Sawyer's Island. But for now, that's this Mickey's Roundtable Adventure. I do hope you liked the video. Click the button that says you liked it. If you do, click that subscribe button, and then I'll be able to make more videos, and you'll be able to see when they show up on the YouTube there. So until next time, this has been another exciting Mickey's Roundtable Adventure.
My feeling is, these days, there's a lot less frontier and a lot more civilization than is truly necessary.